All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to DAP301, how Mercado Libre secured its payment processing with AWS. Hope you guys all got some good lunch in before this. Probably have some people filtering in. I'm Mark Klein. I am the product manager here at AWS for AWS Payment Cryptography. I'm joined by Pablo Milanese from Mercado Libre, the customer, as well as Nicholas Gracing as well. For today's agenda, we're going to learn a little bit about Mercado Libre. Hopefully everybody knows who Mercado Libre is, but if you don't, we're going to have a quick introduction about that. Going to provide a quick introduction to payment cryptography. You probably know something about that as well. One of the two, if you came to this session. A little bit about the business case and why Mercado Libre was interested in using AWS Payment Cryptography. Intro to their architecture. Learning a little bit about how they went about their evaluation process. Understanding whether it was a good fit for them or not. Talking a little bit about the results, what they found and their learnings, where they plan to go from here. And then we'll just summarize up the rest of the sessions. With that, I'll turn it over to Pablo.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mark. As Mark said, my name is Pablo Milanese. I work in Mercado Libre as a software project leader. But first of all, what is Mercado Libre? Let's see. So I think, all right, that's the correct one. So Mercado Libre is one of the largest and most innovative technology companies in the world. For the last 25 years, we have been driving progress in Latin America through commerce and financial services. Okay? So from Mexico to the south of Chile, Mercado Libre reaches a lot of corners in Latin America, as you can see in the pictures, offering payment services and making it easier for sellers and buyers to connect. Okay? So that being said, Mercado Libre's mission is to democratize e-commerce and financial services to transform the lives of millions of people in Latin America. Okay? So that being said, to do that, it relies on an ecosystem that empowers people and business to buy, sell, advertise, and access credit, online and offline. Let's check these numbers. So we are 25 years old. As I said, we are more than 80,000 employees, so it's a really big company. We are Nasdaq since 2007. Actually, we are part of Nasdaq 100 index. And something that is more recent is that we are among the 50 most valued brands in the world, according to Kantar's 2024 brands ranking. So that's a really big deal, really important to us. So let's see the biggest ecosystem in Mercado Libre. So the first one, that is the marketplace. The marketplace is the biggest retailer in Latin America. We have there oil and stores, vehicle, properties and vehicles, digital advertising, shipping, logistics, and more. And the other one, that is the fintech part, that we are going to call from here Mercado Pago, is one of the key players in Latin America. We have there payments, digital accounts, credit, insurance, benefits, and more. Okay? So in this presentation, we are going to focus in the fintech part, in Mercado Pago. So first of all, I'm going to explain what can we do with Mercado Pago. Okay? So for example, you can buy through a QR code. If you have the Mercado Pago application, you can go to a merchant and as a client just buy using a QR code. Or the other way around, you as a seller, you can sell using a QR code as well. All right? Well, we can provide you a Mercado Pago point of sale if you are a merchant, so we can provide you that. Or you can buy a product with a Mercado Pago debit or credit card, and much more. okay? So let's check some results about 2024 and the last quarter of 2024. And okay, this first, that we are among the 17 most valuable brands in the same ranking, but in the financial sector, okay? And the numbers here, thinking about 2024, the annual numbers, it's like $197 billion total volume of payments, okay? That is a lot. And 11.4 billion total number of transactions, okay? So that was 2024. And well, you know the numbers of the last quarter. There's one number there that just catch my attention. Because, well, I am from Uruguay, you know, the country that it's in South America between Brazil and Argentina. And yeah, I see 61 million active users per month. And this is kind of 20 times the population of Uruguay. So for me, it's like a really interesting number, you know? Okay, but these numbers, the results of 2024, all of this just make me think in challenge, okay? And we have some challenge thinking about these numbers. For example, one special date, like Black Friday, or a great marketing campaign, the use of the fintech ecosystem could increase really quickly, and we need to be prepared for that. Or another challenge, it's when we want to integrate with an external provider, like AWS Payment Cryptography. We need to be sure that the external provider can manage all that traffic or volume of transactions, right? So, all right, with these numbers, with these challenges, now Mark is going to explain what is AWS Payment Cryptography.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Bob.
Mark again.
Okay. Great. So just a quick introduction before the team kind of tells you a little bit about how they're using payment cryptography. I thought I'd provide a quick intro for those that aren't familiar with it. So AWS Payment Cryptography is intended to replace dedicated payment hardware, hardware security modules, HSMs, that customers have traditionally had on-premise as a physical device. As customers move to the cloud, they're looking for an elastic AWS service that can help replace that. So rather than having dedicated physical devices, it is a purely elastic service. It is all API-based, and you can essentially use as much of it as you want. Traditional use cases, as Mercado Libre is talking about, card issuing, transaction acquiring, issuer transaction processing. These are the typical parts of a card payment transaction, either on the merchant side or on the bank side or the fintech side. And this handles the typical type of secure transactions that you need as part of processing a payment. Maintaining PCI PIN compliance and securely managing PINs. Managing things securely from end to end using PCI P2PE standards. Creating and importing and managing the keys, the cryptographic keys that are handling all this. And on the issuing side, things like generating CVV2s, generating PINs, and then validating that information when a transaction comes in. This is all integrated into the AWS ecosystem. And as part of that, and AWS services rather. So you are able to monitor that using CloudWatch and CloudTrail, and you're able to secure that using tools like IAM, providing very fine-grained access controls to your service. Talking a little bit about benefits. As I said earlier, it allows you to remove your dependency on dedicated payment HSMs while achieving your cloud migration goals. So this allows you to go all in on the cloud and not have things like payment HSMs that are still out there. It allows you to reduce your operational burden because it is a fully managed service. You can just start using the service by calling the APIs. There's no need to have physical devices or virtual devices that you need to provision and are still responsible for maintaining. And this is a PCI PIN and DSS and other compliance standards. You're able to harness the high availability and the low latency of the service. So you just use it, and we as AWS are responsible for maintaining its high availability and its elasticity. So you get away from having to do capacity planning and things of that nature. And then lastly, as I kind of mentioned, simplified setup, you can just start using it. You just go and download the AWS SDK, which you're probably using for other services. And you can just start calling APIs to create a key. There's no need to sign contracts or to provision hardware or ship hardware or anything like that. We like to say it takes about 5 minutes to get started. And with that, I'll turn that back over to Mercado Libre to tell you a little bit about how they're using the service.
OK.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's see the business case, all right? So payment media. I am 100% sure that you, at least once, went to a merchant and you just bought something using a credit or a debit card, OK? But to do that, you have to request that card to this entity that now we are going to call issuer that provides you that card. This issuer could be a bank, for example, OK? So this is one of the key moments that I wanted to keep you in your mind, that is the issuer provides a card to cardholder. So this entity, again, that we're going to call issuer, provides a card to a cardholder. First key moment. So let's continue, but with an example. OK, so imagine that me, Pablo, I decide to go to this amazing coffee place that I met, I think, 2 blocks from here. That's facts, by the way. And I decide to buy a coffee. OK. Well, you know now that I am from Uruguay, so I have my credit card that was issued there. OK. So I go to the coffee place. I just put my credit card on the point of sale. And after 2 or 3 seconds, something happened that allowed me to take the coffee and leave. OK. But how is that possible? This coffee place doesn't know anything about the issuer that issued my card, or perhaps doesn't even know anything about Uruguay. OK? So the things, I'm not going to enter in details here, but I wanted to show you that behind the scenes, there are a lot of entities that intervene in the authorization process, OK? And the issuer has the final decision, OK? And this is the second key moment that I wanted to keep you in your mind. That is the authorization. The issuer process an authorization request for a transaction, OK? This is a really big world. After the merchant, we have the payment gateway, the acquirer entity, the card network, and finally the issuer, OK? And all of that works together because of a lot of standards and, of course, using the card information. But here in this presentation, we're going to focus in the issuer entity, more precisely in the issuer processing, OK? And it's good to say that in Mercado Pago, we have presence in the acquirer entity and in the payment gateway entity. But again, here we're going to talk about the issuer processing, OK? So let's continue. Well, even more precisely, we're going to talk about the responsibility to ensure security in the use of the cards. Do you remember the 2 key moments that I mentioned a few minutes ago? So the first one, it's when issuing the card. Thinking about ensure security, we need to create and protect the sensitive data, OK? And the second one, that is when authorizing our customer transactions, we need to take care about authenticity, integrity, and confidentiality. And how we do that? All right, applying cryptography through HSMs. This hardware security model that Mark mentioned before, OK, that this hardware is dedicated to apply cryptography. And we do that by sending comments, OK? So let's check some common examples to understand how we apply cryptography through HSMs. For example, let's take a look to this table. So here we have some functionalities like authenticity, and we have the command generate CVV that actually, you know, that data that appear usually behind the card, that's security number. All right, we apply cryptography to generate that number. And well, for example, in the cardholder authentication, when you put the PIN on the point of sale, all right, we need commands as well. And well, when we take care about the chip information, we have the command validate ARQC for car authenticity and integrity validation. So this table is just an example. We have more commands in our solution, but just to show you how we apply cryptography through HSMs. Okay? All right, so the next, we are going to see the architecture, the solution, before we integrate with AWS Payment Cryptography, okay? So how we take care about the business case that I explained before. So let's check the architecture. This is an application, HSM as a service, that we created in Mercado Libre. And this is just a representation of a group of applications that we're going to call issuer authorization, that this group of applications just want to apply cryptography through HSMs, okay? So just request some commands to this another application, HSM as a service. All of these applications are in a Kubernetes technology in the same AWS account. So it's good to say that before even thinking about AWS Payment Cryptography, we already had AWS technologies, okay? But let's continue. So it's important to say we were talking about authorization, transaction. So this is a critical process. So we need to think about resilience and redundancy. So the thing here is that we are multi-provider. So these providers are actually HSM providers. And each provider has more than one hardware. And we connect this application with TCP connections with each hardware, okay? Well, this is easy. Thinking about the critical process, if one endpoint doesn't work, you have the other ones. That's the thing. Okay, we know that availability is important to everyone, but as you can see here, availability is one of our solution prioritization. So we prioritize availability with other things, of course. Well, but how is the strategy? How does this work when a command just come to the service? Let's see. All right, again, this is more simplified, but we have this generate CVV command that just come to the HSM as a service. So here, we do a broadcast to each endpoint of each provider, and the providers are going to answer a result, and the first answer that came to the service is going to be propagated to the client, okay? Of course, all of this is possible because all the command keys are propagated in all the hardwares, in all HSMs. So, but again, the solution priority here is the redundancy and the resilience, okay? But let's check the business model of these providers and some pains that we have with this architecture. So the business model of the providers is fixed bandwidth. That means that, for example, you have a maximum capacity of commands per second, for example, 200, okay? And if you want to upgrade for more, this is a long and bureaucratic process. And the next step, it's too far away from the previous one. For example, perhaps you have a maximum capacity of 200, and the next step is 800, okay? But do you remember the Mercado Pago scenario? We are actually continually growing, so we need upgrades. And we have these special dates that I mentioned before, like Black Friday, that we know that the traffic can increase very quickly, all right? So we need to be prepared for that. We need to take care about that date. So we need to just to have a really high step, you know? But with the regular dates, we are over-provisioned for transaction capacity. This is not elastic, you know? It has maximum capacity and steps. That's the thing. Well, To sum up the pains, I think this is a good representation that it is essential for us that the services we integrate with provide us agility when it comes to scaling. Okay? Now, Nicolas here is going to explain about the rollout process with AWS Payment Cryptography.
Well, thank you, Pablo. Hello, everyone. I am Nicolas Gracing. I work at Mercado Libre as technical leader. And I'm here to show you how was the process we followed to adopt payment cryptography. First, let's take a look at our architecture after the integration. As you can see, there is now many changes from what Pablo presented before. We kept the same strategy of prioritizing resilience through redundancy by adding AWS Payment Cryptography as a new HSM provider. But of course, there are some differences, and I want to share with you. Payment cryptography is a fully managed service, which means that the service itself is an abstraction of many physical HSMs. So in terms of redundancy, it's even more redundancy for us. Also, fully managed means that we don't need to worry about HSM maintenance. AWS does it for us. Another difference is the way we connect with HSMs. While with other providers, we do it by implementing some complex protocols over TCP, where we have to manage connection pools, and we need to understand those protocols. That is not always a simple task. Instead, with AWS Payment Cryptography, we use the SDK they provide for our programming language. And in case your programming language doesn't have that SDK, you can always rely on the REST API AWS provides as well. I think this is way easier to integrate with using this kind of technologies. Finally, there is another difference in how we configure the application, because AWS Payment Cryptography and our HSM as a service shares the same AWS account. So if, for example, we want to segregate our environment into testing, production, the only thing we have to do is to set up the IAM profiles and roles accordingly. Okay? So now that you have an overview of our architecture, I'm going to share with you which steps we gave since we started exploring the service until we got it productive. First, of course, we started by analyzing the service documentation. We had those meetings with the AWS team where they explained the service and its capabilities. Also, we did a workshop where we played a little bit with the AWS CLI to send commands and get along with the service. But we wanted to learn how to integrate using the SDK, and we wanted to validate that every single command we needed was supported by the service. So in order to do that, we implemented this functional POC, proof of concept, where we developed a new application in the same programming language that we use in our HSM as a service. And using the SDK, we sent commands to the service to test them. First, we did it by using some random generated keys. But as we already had some integration tests with the other providers that Pablo showed, we decided that it was a good idea to compare results. So in order to do that, we needed to get those keys that we had in those integration tests and share them with the AWS Payment Cryptography service. How is that done? Okay, we execute this key migration process I'm going to explain, where we, using asymmetric cryptography, we share a symmetric key encryption key, and with that symmetric key encryption key, we were able to share all the keys we needed for the tests. Once we got those keys shared in both providers, we ran the test again, and we knew for sure that functionally the service satisfies our need. But as Pablo told you before, scalability is critical for us. So we wanted to test that. We wanted to know how would the service behave on some scaling scenario. So using this same application I told you before, we implemented this test, the non-functional POC, where we wanted to be representatives of the reality, so we wanted to get the same proportion of common types in this test. So if we had, I don't know, 20% ARQC validations, 15% PIN validations, I don't know, 10% CVV validations, sorry for that, we'll get the same proportion here, okay, in this test. So we also set as a goal of 1,000 comments per second for the test. We thought that it would be challenging enough, that quantity of comments. And as scalability was the main point of the test, we decided to, well, we designed these increments here, where we started with 50 comments per second, and in 3 steps, we reached to 1,000 comments per second, and we left it there for 15 minutes. I think it's good to point out that every step we gave there was made in just 30 seconds. So I think that's pretty aggressive, you know? So now, let's take a look at some of the results of this test. We had a P95 response time of 759 milliseconds, what means that the most command we sent to the service was responded in that time or less. Also, we had a maximum response time of 255 milliseconds, and we had no error at all during the whole test. I think that's kind of impressive, because when you are doing the kind of tests that are kind of aggressive in terms of scalability, maybe you can tolerate some low error rate, but that not was the case. So how do we integrate on our solution? There are some risks we have to mitigate, you know, because we are in a critical process, and we really need to be sure that nothing will happen when we integrate with the service. So we implemented this right-on strategy, where it's kind of, we tested the service on the productive environment, you know. So because what could happen? What is the worst that could happen? For example, if using the strategy that Pablo mentioned before, if we receive I don't know, a PIN validation because a client is trying to buy something, and if payment cryptography is the first that responds, and for example, we migrated a key in the wrong way, maybe we are answering something we don't want to answer to the client, and the client will be angry, you know? So for that reason, we did this right-on strategy where we did send the commands to AWS Payment Cryptography, but we wouldn't respond or propagate it to the client. Instead, we compared the response with the response of the other providers, and we could be sure that every single command and every single key we needed was okay, were okay, sorry. So we also did this right-on strategy progressively, you know. We started by sending just 20% of the command to the payment cryptography service, because we wanted to take care of our resources. We were integrated with a new service using a third-party SDK, so we really wanted to know that we had no memory leak or we didn't have an unexpected CPU increase, and in case we have it, we wanted to mitigate that risk. So after we realized that everything was working fine in this about the resources, we started incrementing the quantity of commands we send to the payment cryptography service until we get to the 100%. And after reviewing our metric for a couple of days and see that every command was being responded accordingly, we decided to disable this right-run mode for the payment cryptography provider, and we were, with the service, fully productive. Okay? So now, let's take a look at the results, since we integrated with payment cryptography, and the roadmap we have with the service in Mercado Libre. Well, since we integrated with payment cryptography, we have responded more than 700 million commands using the service. those commands we responded with a P95 response time of 6.06 milliseconds. We had peaks of 200 commands per second, and we haven't experienced any downtime so far this story, not even a maintenance window. In terms of what's next with Mercado Libre and payment cryptography, well, in Mercado Libre we have present in all those yellow painted countries, but we are using payment cryptography on Mexico, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina, only on our issuer business. Now we are planning to expand the use of payment cryptography in our payment gateway solution. And probably in the near future, we are going to expand the use of our products to other countries as well, so that would increase the use of payment cryptography also in those countries. Finally, I wanted to make a summary of what we have been talking here. First, we think that payment cryptography has an interesting business model where you pay for what you use. Also, we know for sure that the service scale up pretty easy and fast, as it said. And those 2 points, I think it makes the service pretty elastic. You are never over-provisioned or under-provisioned. And that was one of the principal pains that Pablo explained before. Also, I want to point out that the integration process is simple using the SDKs or the REST API. And finally, I want to say that payment cryptography is a fully managed service, which is great for redundancy, resilience, and not to worry about HSM maintenance. To end my part of the presentation, I want to thank the AWS team, both account and service, because they have been very supportive during the whole process of integration. And I think we had a great synergy doing that. So thank you, and I leave you with Mark again.
Yeah, great, thank you. Thanks very much for that. So we reached the end of our session today. Definitely want to thank Pablo and Nicolas for telling us a little bit about their experience. Great to hear about 11 billion transactions that you guys are doing. Such a great success for your company. We're glad that we can help provide the underlying infrastructure to help you guys be successful on the technology side, both payment cryptography and other AWS services as well. Please make sure to fill out the survey. You should get that prompted in your app. That always helps us make these sessions better and make sure that it helps you get the information that you want. And the 3 of us will be outside of the event as well if you have any quick questions. And our LinkedIn information is available here if you have any questions for any of us at any time. And with that, thank you guys very much for attending today.
Thank you.